Hey everyone, and welcome to another episode of X Marathon, the series where we cover everything and anything related to the X-Men franchise. And today we are going to be covering the first in the trilogy of Wolverine films, which is X-Men Origins Wolverine. And we're switching it up today. We don't have Joelle nor Emily, but we got returning people from the show who were here on the last special, May Monkey Madness. We have...
Yeah, not this time. Hi, it's Adrian.
And we have Yan.
We're going to be talking about specifically the Wolverine films with this group of people. That is because Emily has stated to me that she's not that big of a fan of Wolverine as a character and never really cared to watch these movies. So I wanted to spice it up and get some other people in here to see what they think about Wolverine. Now, before we get started on these movies, I want to ask you guys, what has been your exposure to the overall X-Men films and Wolverine for that matter?
I'd have to say, I think Death Battle was one of my bigger introductions
Mm-hmm.
into it. And then just diving into Marvel in general, I've heard of like Wolverine, but I never really heard of like the X-Men in its entirety, just Wolverine. So I think it's really my only experience. Never watched any of the movies. These Wolverine films were my first experience into the films. No X-Men for me. So.
Interesting. Okay, what about you, Yen?
Alright, so I'll be honest. I actually watched a few of the older X-Men movies, like the one with Ryan Reynolds in it before it became Deadpool, like the old ones, I guess.
That's this one.
Wait, what?
That's the one we're talking
That's
about.
Origins.
That's Origins.
Right. Okay, well, I have watched a few of the old cartoons then as a kid.
Okay.
But other than that, it's just cartoons and like these movies. Like the actual Wolverine movies, I never watched until Logan. So.
This film in particular covers the origin, basically in the title, of Wolverine. Throughout the movie so far, at least up until the point when this movie was released, they've only hinted at his origin. In the first movie, you get to see like his X-ray and how like he's got like metal grafted to his skeleton. And then in the second film, they go more into his origin with Stryker, or at least having Stryker be in X2 as the main villain. And this one is basically like, we're just going to explain it all. And it is based off a specific run in the comics called Weapon X, which is a great comic series. Very different from what the movie decides to do with it, but still a really good comic. Alright, I'm just going to say this right off the bat. Of all the films we're going to cover for this X Marathon, and have covered, this is the worst.
I've never even seen the others, but this one was such a straight line.
God, this film... I don't know why or how this movie can be this bad. I know that this movie went through a lot of weird creative differences in pre-production. The director originally wanted this film to be more about PTSD. And if you know anything about the Wolverine character, the reason why he loses memories in the comics is because his mind heals from PTSD by basically getting rid of what happened. But in this film, they decided to do something different, but we'll kind of get into that later. One of the things that I think is the worst part of this movie is that it's a very silly movie that's trying to be cool. It's that kid who's a really nerdy kid who thinks, oh, I'm going to wear a leather black jacket and sunglasses to school, and maybe people will think I'm cool. That's what I feel like this film is. Do you guys have anything else to say? Like, I know, Adrian, you saw this film, and you had some things to say about it.
You said it was based off something, but like Deadpool like was not the same. Some of these characters I'm like introduced to some of the original. I'm like, oh man, and then the straight line storyline, like, oh, I'm gonna find this bitch, I'm gonna kill this bitch, and then my problems will be solved because this guy is chasing me. He's working with this other guy. I'm like, oh my lord, okay. And at this time,
Mm-hmm.
I'm freaking. And I already knew this movie was bad, so I was cooking a steak and a side. I was like, I'll see what it is. God, I wanted to focus on my steak a lot more than the movie.
Yeah. This took me 2 sittings to get through, like Last Stand before that. There's just so much just wrong with the film. I do think there are some good things in it. Like, I'll say this, throughout all of the movies, X-Men, the Wolverine films, Hugh Jackman has been the through-line best part of all of these films. He is always putting 100% into the role, even when they are dog shit movies like this. I understand, like, yes, Wolverine's origin is a big part of the character, but even in the comics, his origin has been retconned and retooled, and different writers put their own spin on it so many times that to make a movie that tries to, like, combine all of those elements together, it ultimately doesn't work because it's just like, what story are we wanting to tell? Are we wanting to tell a revenge story? Are we wanting to tell a story about PTSD? Are we wanting to tell a story about these two brothers coming into conflict with each other? And what the film ultimately says is like,
For all of it, but we're not going to do a good job of telling all of it.
Yeah. Basically, one thing that I do think this film does is actually gives Sabretooth somewhat of a character and bravado, whereas, like, the first X-Men film, he's just a guy who makes lion noises and scratches at people. Whereas this is an actual character. A lot of his moves are really silly, like when he goes, like, full pounce mode and just, like, gets practically horizontal and just...
What you're telling me is, the original films, he's just a freaking brain-dead furry. But in this one, he actually has a brain. It is an actual demon animal.
Yeah, I guess you could put it like that. But I still like his character, and I like his interpretation of this version. I just wish that, like, he was in a better movie. That way this would have been much more interesting.
I mean, I think he did fine as, with what he was given in the storyline. And then I just personally love action sequences, and the way he moves and the way he fights was good to me.
Mm-hmm.
So I think those were really solid points in the movie between the fights between Wolverine and Sabretooth, like, every single time they did.
Mm-hmm. I think for me, like, I wasn't a big fan of the action in this movie. There's, like, a couple cool things that I think are, like, neat, but I felt like they were just cut up to hell. Like, there's just so many rapid cuts and, like, fast edits that was just like, I can't tell what's going on in these fight scenes, and basically I'm just waiting to see who wins so we can continue on with the story that I really don't care about.
When you put it that way.
Again, just going back to the things that I do like in the film, I do like the adamantium graphing sequence where, like, he's going through the procedure. Like,
I feel like it's like one of the only good redeeming scenes in that movie.
mm-hmm. And, like, people have used that gif of him, like, rising out of the water and so many things. Even though I don't understand how just injecting metal into someone's skeleton could somehow just turn their entire bone structure into metal. That makes no sense, but then again, we're dealing with mutants. And, like, another thing that will always bother me is, like, I don't like the claws in this movie for multiple reasons. I hate the bone claws because I think they're stupid. If he has those bone claws in the beginning and they're all that chunky bone look to him, how, when he actually gets the adamantium grafted, why are they now knives? You know what I mean? Like, they didn't say in the film that, like, we've molded these knife-shaped objects to your bones so that
Never noticed that.
Think about it, like, if it was like a bone, like bone claws coming out, they would just be metal, chunky nonsense coming out of his...
Yeah, it'd be toothpicks.
Yeah. Or, like, really jagged metal, like rebar, pretty much, coming out of his knuckles. But no, they're, like, straight-line claws. And, like, this wouldn't be a big problem for me overall, because I'm like, well, maybe they don't explain it. But, like, in the next film we're going to cover, there's a part where we see what the claws look like inside the metal. And I'm like, wait, so they are grafted like that? I don't know. It's one of those things that I always have to, like, look past. Like, wait, if they're chunky bone here, why are they now, like, this knife-shaped object? That's, like, the least of my problems with, like, the claws.
Yeah,
because
I'm thinking, like, human anatomy, like, the bone knives, we'll call them, were structured like fingers. You have different segments of them. But yeah, somehow turn out to a knife.
I'm just gonna chalk it up to, like, super science gene editing, similar to how our hair and nails grow differently, but they're both keratin.
They weren't shaped as knives, and, like, no, I'm trying to think of a bone in the body that is shaped like that, and there aren't many.
No, okay.
At least not that size.
If we're going to be comparing Wolverine to an animal, which this film loves to do, and all these films really, there's no animal in the entire animal kingdom that can protrude, not even blades, like pokey, bone-like objects out of their arm. Now, keep in mind that these are mutants, so there's no animal out there that has laser eyes. So I am willing to suspend my disbelief in that regard. But I can't suspend my disbelief when it comes to just, like, chunky bone claw to now blade.
The closest thing I think of is like a porcupine.
I guess.
Well, you have sea snails with spears. Is that close?
I guess. I mean, I never heard anybody compare Wolverine to a sea snail, but you heard it
Oh,
here, folks.
I think he's a mollusk.
We're gonna turn him into an animal. Next thing you know, he just grows a shell and just chills underwater. Another thing with the claws that I hate in this film, and I don't know if you noticed this, Adrian, but I think you may have because of one comment you said off at Mike. The CG claws suck.
Oh, I hate. Oh my god, the CGI. Oh my god, the CGI in this movie. I fucking hated it.
Yeah, those CGI claws, and just in general, there's a lot of moments that just this movie turns into a cartoon. Like, there's one moment that I think is like ridiculously silly. It's the moment where like they're in New Orleans and Sabretooth and Wolverine are in a back alley fighting each other, and then Gambit comes in and breaks up the fight and starts like fighting Wolverine, but also tries to leave. So basically, he did that one move that knocks them all back, and then he's like, "I'm out, bye." That doesn't make sense to me. But the thing that just doesn't sit well with me is there's a moment where he's on one of those like fire escapes, and Wolverine just chops one of those.
Slicing it. It made no sense to me.
And like
How it fell down. It didn't fall back like it usually should when you remove the support at the bottom.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, maybe it had the support in the top holding it. But that didn't exist because everything was coming down at the same time.
Yeah, and then they make a point like, okay, if I'm gonna cut this one thing and the whole thing's gonna fall. And I'm like, if everything just moved down an inch, or however many inches that it moved down, why would that one thing now be that important? It looked straight up like a cartoon. It was like a bizarre.
It just reminds me of like scenes in cartoons or like anime or other things where it's just like a monster like eating the bottom of something. It's just progressively going down.
You know what? I just realized it reminds me of like a Scooby-Doo sandwich where they just chomp at it from the bottom and it just slowly comes down. That's what, again, cartoon logic in this film. Just, ugh. I guess I should ask you guys. There's a lot of like X-Men related side characters that are in this film. Like you get Gambit, you get the Blob. You
I
get...
am. Dude, when I first saw him, like, he looks familiar. I had to look up the freaking casting to see that was Will.i.am. I'm like, holy fuck.
Yep.
Man, this really is a 2009 film.
This film doesn't really tell you what time period it is in. Like, it's supposed to be post, like, Vietnam War. So is it like the 80s? Is this the 70s? What time period is this really? Because then you get characters like Cyclops is in this film as like a young man. And he's just there for like, oh, this is connected to X-Men. And he never really gets to see Wolverine that way. When they meet later in the future, they don't know each other. I'm like, okay, that's just incredibly forced.
I want to say, just based on how like New Orleans looked, I want to say maybe 90s, maybe 2000s. Very, very iffy.
Okay,
I'd say maybe 19.
I would have to disagree
90s.
with the 2000s thing because if we're going based off this canon of X-Men, in like 1999, 2000s, that's when Wolverine was recruited by Cyclops and the X-Men in general to be in the X-Men. Yeah, I guess what I could ask is like, what did you think of Gambit?
I thought it was cool.
Yeah, I mean, I wish there was more of him. And like,
Yeah, I wish there was more, like, in that final act.
oh yeah,
Because he's kind of disappeared.
he gets Wolverine there on his plane, and then he just shows up randomly to break a brick, and that's it. So I'm like,
Yeah.
well, wow, way to waste Gambit of all characters. And I mean, if you want to hear our thoughts on like the Gambit movie that was supposed to be, listen to our last review of New Mutants. Yeah, I thought he was cool. I thought Taylor Kitsch did a good job as Gambit. I just wish, again, maybe not in this film, but I would have liked to have seen him in a proper X-Men film as Gambit. But I guess one character I want to talk to you two about, because I think he's a pretty funny character and kind of the sillier elements that I like about this film. What did you guys think of the Blob?
I mean, he's a blob.
I guess. Alright, I thought he was pretty funny. I like the sequence. I think it's a goofy sequence that, like, makes sense for this film. Like, okay, I guess we're just now going to do a boxing scene with the Blob.
Oh my god. Wow. Yeah, I've seen this movie. I remember watching this scene as a kid. I didn't know what to think, man. It just reminded me of like the type of people I usually saw at Walmart. Because I was still living in Florida. Like, I was still living in Florida back then.
Okay.
So like these are exactly the type of builds you'd see in a Walmart down there.
I believe you. You know what the funny thing is too? In this movie, they explain like that him being fat is not his mutant power. His mutant power is he's got like durable skin and super strength. He just got fat naturally.
Yeah, he's like, oh man, I got laid off. I'm gonna be depressed and eat.
Adrian, this is one thing I wanted to tell you that's gonna break your brain. The same actor that plays the Blob in this film plays Proximus Caesar in Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes.
Fuck you.
His name is Kevin Durand. He's a great actor. And
Kevin Durant,
Durand
basketball player.
can't unsee it now, can you?
Years later, monkey.
Uh-huh. It all comes back to May Monkey Madness, baby.
He devolved.
Default.
He was like a beautiful, fine specimen as a blob, and then he turns himself into a chimp.
Alright, do you just want to rip the Band-Aid off on this one, Adrian? Do you want to talk about Deadpool? Or
Oh my lord.
should we put it in quotes? Deadpool?
Yes. Oh my god. It was the worst thing.
Yeah.
To ruin a character I've ever seen.
This has to be like the worst bit of character assassination in any form of anything I've ever seen. Because, like, they go out of their way to take away one of Deadpool's trademark things. Like, the thing that makes Deadpool Deadpool, and they just were like, nah.
No, because like they showed it when we first see Wade Wilson.
Mm-hmm. Like, yeah,
So
he's a wisecracker.
You get the one-liners like,
Mhm.
oh, that's how they call you the mark of the mouth, yada yada yada,
Mhm.
and then we're gonna bring you back and not have a mouth.
Yeah. I have no problem with them making up a character that has all the powers of various X-Men characters. I think that's fine. But to go out of your way and say this is Deadpool and give him nothing like Deadpool, like, even his blades in his wrist don't make any sense.
That was weird. Quick question: was he just on the team at the beginning because he was talented, or did he actually have a power?
I don't know. I mean, in this film, it's weird. Deadpool in the movie Deadpool and in the comics is not a mutant by birth. He's just a mercenary who develops cancer and then goes through this treatment that basically turns him into this like unkillable mass murderer.
Yeah, that's why I had to ask because it's like he put a team of mutants together. This guy's just really talented.
And I guess this is also a thing with like some other X-Men characters. Like, how do you know you're born with that ability? Do you just like wave a stick around? Now you're like, oh, I'm really good at splitting bullets in half because I don't know. Like, what is his power specifically? It just seems to be I wave my sword back and forth and I cut bullets. Like, I know people think that's a really cool scene, but I think it's just stupid because I'm like, what is his power specifically?
Yeah, because then that also brings me to the other character I questioned, the sniper.
Oh, Agent Zero, I think his name is?
Yeah.
The Asian guy.
Wow, he's just an Asian guy.
Okay, tell me one thing about this character, personality-wise. Tell me one thing.
Loyal.
Fuck you. Okay. But no, even that guy's power is like, how do you know your power is like, I am really good at shooting things? Not out of me.
Oh,
Just
see, my trigonometry homework. Let me do this one in person and see. That ain't gonna make no sense, but I'm really good at aim.
oh,
Yeah,
of course.
power isn't super like sniping or shooting. No, it's just advanced calculations.
Oh my god, we've made this racist.
So he's just a typical Asian citizen.
Oh
Yeah.
my
You know,
god.
one scene where Wolverine's taken in by an elderly family. Oh, let's see. This window is a distance of X when these family members are this many years old.
So
He's
one.
made out of this material.
Jesus.
If I want to collateral them,
All right.
oh, yeah, like you're telling me, like when he told the pilot in the helicopter when they're going down to pull up, he didn't have the exact movement to safely land themselves in his head. Like, come on, it was just the pilot's fault for not listening and not knowing how.
Disclaimer: we're both Asian. We can say this.
I'm not, so I'm gonna stay the fuck back. Well, going back to like Deadpool, like even though I hate it, I would have forgiven the film if they just stopped at the teleportation and the blades in his wrist. But then they had to make it worse by giving him Cyclops laser eyes.
Yeah, and then they said, "Oh, we're gonna put all the powers," and yet I don't even think half are on display.
Oh yeah, like that one guy who has the ability to control electricity, never used in Deadpool.
And then like the hardened skin from the sister.
Not used.
Really not used, even though that was really the main reason she was there to
Yep.
make him stronger.
Mm-hmm.
Wasn't even used.
Plus, there's like God knows how many other mutants that are like cameos from famous X-Men
Exactly. And
characters
there's
that
like
they
one that
don't
was
use.
just like prancing around in his cell.
That's Quicksilver.
Oh, that was?
And that is apparently a nod to Quicksilver or actually Quicksilver, but
So you tell me he had super speed
mm-hmm.
and didn't use it,
Yeah,
regardless if it was Quicksilver or not, and he didn't use it.
yeah, pretty much.
Bro had hardened skin, super speed, laser eyes, and a singular claws coming out of his hands, and you're telling me he lost to Wolverine.
And Sabretooth.
Nah, he would have died too.
Yeah, I guess.
Yeah, I guess they forgot to give Deadpool a brain.
Well, no, one thing I find really funny is that he's text to control.
So they don't have brains. They just lost track of what they fucking had. Bro is a fucking Pokemon where he only has 4 moves on his fucking list and forgot the rest.
Mm-hmm. There's a moment where he has to type out decapitate. And I'm thinking to myself, like, why don't they just have a hotkey for that?
There's a quick key to just kill people.
Yeah, like, how does this work?
It wasn't already in your system to just click this input.
Mm-hmm.
Again, it's 2009. But come on.
I'm glad that we have the Deadpool we have now, and that Ryan Reynolds got to redeem himself, because this was Deadpool's legacy for like a good 7 years. I will say, kind of a spoiler, maybe not, but I have a theory regarding the head of Deadpool in this film. Because at the end of the film, Wolverine cuts off Deadpool's head, and his head lasers down the thing. And I wanted to bring up this theory that I have for the new Deadpool and Wolverine film, where apparently we're supposed to get the Deadpool core. That's only theory. I only say that because we see Dogpool in the trailer. And one of the people of the Deadpool core is this character named Headpool, who is just a propellered head of Deadpool flying around. And I think it'd be really funny if they made that version from this movie Headpool.
Should be a funny callback to the fucking mistake they had.
Yeah. So it's just this head that shoots lasers and flies around. But yeah, I think that's all I really have to say about this film. If I want to like end off on anything, like
No, I need to talk about the bitch.
ooh.
That's the worst plot twist I've ever seen. Like, oh, we faked her death. We used this drug to hide her heartbeat and stuff, and we used this blood. There was no puncture wound on the body.
Yeah.
There are no claw marks.
Uh-huh.
You just assumed she was dead from something, and she bleeded profusely.
Yep.
Literally the worst. I'm like, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to. I loved you.
Okay.
Fucking and then your redemption arc. Oh, they have my sister. Oh, great. Where have I seen this storyline before? It just pissed me off.
Again, I just feel like this is just a faux cool movie, and that's my biggest problem with the film. Going forward in this trilogy of films, this Wolverine specific trilogy, the claws are like a sign of like, this was a horrible torture done to me, and it's still affecting my life. It's given me this massive amounts of PTSD, and this is not a gift. This is a curse. This is a weapon. I've been turned into a weapon. And what I think this film fails to do is show that. Instead, they're like, how cool are the claws, man? And that's not interesting to me, because it's just like, okay, it's cool. He just got an upgrade. There's so much you could have explored there with him. Like at the beginning of this film, they go through all those wars, and you could have actually delved deep into like the PTSD behind that. And they do for a little bit, but then like they just give it up for this really bland revenge story that, as Adrian pointed out, doesn't really mean much in the end.
Come on, it's so bad. There's so many angles, and you just go, oh, this guy I thought was brother turned bad. Just take me back to a freaking episode 3 of Star Wars, alright? Like, come on.
Yeah, and is there anything you want to say? Just like, I know you haven't, or you have seen this film, but you forgot most of it, which I envy you.
I'll forget next week.
Probably. I can't. I'm editing this thing. But so, yeah, and is there anything you want to add to this review before we move on?
I typically have a good memory of my childhood, but
Just ruined it.
the only thing that I remember is the blob. That's pretty bad on the movie's part. That's all I can remember from the entirety of it.
A fat guy.
Yeah, I remember the fat guy fight scene. Literally.
Jan said, that's not going to be me, and started working out.
Oh my that. Yeah, it was put into me as a little boy. Wait.
All
No,
right.
no, no, no. Wait. Dude, honestly, I'm probably gonna watch that on my own time. It sounds like I missed out on a lot of just golden nominee material.
All right. More like golden shower material, but
I like those two.
what?
Oh,
Okay.
wait. No. Max, cut that out.
Quote it,
Cut
quote
that
it,
out.
quote it, quote it.
So yeah, we're gonna end that review off. I kind of want to be done talking about this movie so we can move on to like better movies. So yeah, that was our review for X-Men Origins Wolverine. A review that like I've been dreading in this X marathon that we've been doing, and kind of glad we're done with it now, so we can move on to like the Wolverine, which I think is a significant step in the right direction. And yeah, I can't wait to talk about it. We're good. Same crew here is gonna be talking about that film. So yeah, do you guys want to say before we go, just say your names?
It's Adrian.
It's Yan.
And I'm Max. Please subscribe, like this video, and comment what you think about this movie. If you have, hey, what if you like this film? You're probably like a rare few out there, but I would love to hear your opinion on why you think this is a good movie and why you're wrong.
It's water wet.
Son of a bitch. We have more X Marathon videos to go. So yeah, we're gonna close this one up. I hope you all have a good day. Bye.